Okay.
Edgy is now time for Satsang.
Okay. My practice now is just to totally relax. Forget having anything to do, any way to be, and just show up. I have nothing to communicate. And just to tell you that the less activity and thinking you can manage will gradually deepen until you can do nothing and be blissfully happy. Is that enough in spirituality? Except to relax and be blissfully happy? Or does that sound like bullshit? When you want nothing, what happens is that you get increasingly happy the less you want. And just do nothing. And rather than run away from you, people will be attracted by the silence. Let go of all effort, including the effort to understand or to be. And just do nothing. Don't practice doing nothing. Just do nothing. Well, hi, Eddie. You can feel the deep peace that lies within you after you stop doing things. You're not doing nothing for any reason other than it feels good. And I check my own beingness now. And the sense of being has turned into a kind of lower state of bliss. I'm just happy doing nothing. I don't plan on going somewhere. I don't plan on doing something. I'm just doing nothing. Which is the ultimate rest state. But it also facilitates spiritual growth. To do nothing. Instead of trying to figure out what's appropriate in the moment. You get one of these, you get another one, you put it next to you on the other side. You do nothing. Leave it all behind. And gradually the peace will set in. I could never do this in the past. I always had to be doing something, like progressing towards some goal. Here, I don't even try that anymore. Just do nothing. The most profound rest is what you're aiming for without aiming for it. Just know it's there, but don't try to get there. Let it happen to you. And when it happens, you'll feel the deep rest inside of yourself, which turns into happiness or bliss, if you want to call it that. Now, can there be a better goal than happiness? Happiness ends all the others because it gives you rest. Does anybody have a question for Eddie here? Mark, have you a question for me?
Well, now that you mentioned it, okay, so one question that I have for you is about approximately 30 years ago, maybe slightly less than that, Robert moved to Sedona. And at the time, I think you were very you wanted to join him, you couldn't join him, and it was a disappointment for you at the time, and it was a major disruption in your friendship with Robert and your practice as well. So that must have seemed quite negative at the time, but shortly after that, you like a lot of spiritual progress was made. So it seems to me that, and correct me if I'm wrong,
You're wrong.
that I'm wrong. Okay.
First of all, state your conclusions, then I'll say whether you're wrong or not.
Okay, so one thing you did, instead of meeting up with Robert and stuff, you started just sitting on your couch and listening to chants a lot. And just, you loved the chants, and you let the chants, the happiness that came from listening to that, wash over you, and you abided in that for many hours. And that did a lot of work that helped you a lot. And why I'm bringing it up is it's very similar to what you're doing now, which is, going into that blissful space before thought, but staying there a lot and just allowing it to wash over you and to do the work.
I didn't think of it that way, that I was doing it as a practice. I was doing it because I don't care anymore. That knowledge isn't important to me. Those states aren't important to me. Right, Eddie? What do you think?
I have another question. Yeah, that's your answer for that? For that
Sure.
first? Okay. So the second question is, we were talking about, do we live after, are we eternal? Is life after death a possibility, et cetera, et cetera. And you said no. As far as you can see, it's just the end is the end and that's it. Okay, fair enough. Now, if there is no such thing as a separate self, because the separate self is an artificial construct of conditioning the mind and thought, and once one becomes awakened, it's clear nothing is separate. It's all immersed in nothingness. It's all unity and all that. So my question is, if there is no separate self, who is there to die?
The body dies.
Yeah. But if what we are is created at birth and ends at death, so like what's wrong with that? Like there is no problem either that way.
I'm not catching your drift.
Okay, those who fear death, or those who fear the ending of their existence, and wish for an afterlife, well, I mean, it's an understandable thing to want, but if we don't come from a past existence, if we're just created at birth through our genetics and whatever, and our consciousness somehow is created, so there is no problem there either, because it's a temporary experience, and it ends in nothingness, just like it started. It ends in zero, in the lack
Sounds
of any.
disappointing, doesn't it?
Sorry?
It sounds disappointing, doesn't it?
No, and not to me. It doesn't. It can sound disappointing, sure, but to me it doesn't sound disappointing, because to me, part of awakening is accepting what is as it is, not as I would like it to be or assume it to be, whatever. So whatever is fine. There is no wrestling with it. There is no struggle. That's all.
So you're making a statement, not asking a question, right?
Yeah, I'm saying there isn't really a problem there. There can appear to be one if one is thinking that they're a separate self. If one feels that they're a separate self, that could feel very fearful, the dissolution of their existence permanently. But it's not really a problem. It only seems that way from that vantage point of the separate self, I think. Anyway, that's all I want to say. It's getting harder and harder to say original things here, but I try.
Just relax. Forget the idea of what purpose you came here from. Think not about what or why you're doing this. Just relax and let go. If you can let go of your basic existence, even better. The closest we come to truth is nothingness. And if you can experience nothingness without a problem, you're way ahead of the game. You understand, you can see, you can intuit that the less you do, the closer you come to your rest state, zero state. And in the zero state, there's rest and happiness. But as long as you're looking for something, including the zero state, you're trapped into doing. But if you can imagine doing nothing and enjoying it, you're more than halfway there already. You die to yourself without dying. And every moment becomes celebratory. It becomes elevated. It becomes beautified. Doing nothing. Nowhere to go. Just rest completely into yourself. That self of silence. At this place, you've given up all striving and trying to achieve. And you're okay with being and doing nothing because it feels so good to feel completely surrendered to nothing. nowhere to go, nothing to do. And what do you find? You find rest. You find rest. And you can find peace. I know if your life is busy and you're overwhelmed with your own feelings or understandings or desires, it's hard to let go of everything because those things still nab at you, even in the nothingness you have attained, making it incomplete. But when you can accept nothingness as your goal, you can realize that you don't have to strive to be nothing. You just let go of somethingness. And feel your body inside. Scan your body. And keep doing it until there's nothing there to scan anymore. Now, at first, the pursuit of nothingness seems like a terrible thing. It has no direction, no known happiness. It means dissolution, a folding up of your human identity. And the deeper you go inside yourself, the more profound the nothingness gets. Nothingness is your primal state. We enter it in every night for a bit, interrupted by dreams. Many of us really resist going to sleep because there's nothingness there. And we prefer to know that we exist and that we're somethingness. But somethingness is temporary. Nothingness is the ground state. It's a state of silence, of rest, and a profound peace. The more you practice it, the sweeter it becomes. You find in nothingness there's no intent to escape it. It calls to you. The state of rest. In it, you hear everything, but you're moved by nothing. You're a spectator of your own existence. And being a spectator removes you somewhat from experiencing that existence. But after a long while of practicing, you become that basic state of nothingness. And you're happy with it. This means realigning your whole life away from attaining things, providing for your retirement, having something to do. In this case, having something to do is abiding in and doing nothing. You sink inwards into yourself. At first, it feels like it's just your body. But there's an aliveness within that body that can detect itself. You can feel the aliveness in you. You can meditate on that aliveness. And if you can become one with it, there's a good deal of bliss. But there's no overall goal of getting something or attaining something, even if it's called peace or nothingness. There's no striving for it. It just comes. And the deeper you can feel this, the closer you can grow to yourself in terms of identification of deeper states of consciousness, such as basic awareness. You can practice that too. Just sit somewhere and practice being aware of your body. And also aware of the sounds around you. And be aware of your own innards. Are you happy doing this? Or are you still trying to discover something within yourself you didn't know before? As long as you're looking for something, any kind of experience or attainment, you're still of this world. When all of that ceases, you're in a different world. the world of nothingness. Nowhere to go, nothing to do. Nothing to do with your mind, nothing to do with your body. And you feel a natural bent to become silent. To give up all thinking, give up all words. They're only concepts, and no concept is true, really. I thought for a moment two cats were going to have a fight on my legs. I was waiting for it to happen, but they finally just stiffed each other. And one left. Maybe they're feeling the peace too. We have a large white cat. He was very young, 2 years. He's very curious. It's this guy down here. And we have Mr. Black here. Who's gotten so mellow over the last few years. And he used to be a big troublemaker. Something happened to him. He had some extensive work done on his teeth. And ever since that time, he seems to be a lot happier, content. So what is your sticking point? What ideas or mission keeps trying to pull you in? Who keeps trying to pull you into the world instead of being free from it? Practicing emptiness brings a total freedom. Freedom from doing and also freedom from reacting. In all spiritual practices I've been engaged in, there's a state of doing nothing, which they all agree is the closest you'll get to the divine, if there is a divine. Just to be nothing. No longer just striving to be anything in the world or finding something you don't have in the external world. Because what you've gained is your internal world. And you begin to know it better and better every day. Because you're mostly at rest now. The internal world grows in importance to you. Nothingness, there's a deep sense of peace. And also happiness, because you're now complete. You're not striving for anything. And it's so easy to strive for nothingness than it is to strive to be a great teacher or to become enlightened or to do anything else. Just be as you are. Find those very basic states in you when you're as close to silence as you can get. And if you operate with that perspective, the states themselves are more amenable to being experienced. There is a reluctance at first to enter into nothingness because it goes against the American archetype of being a problem solver and a doer and a maker of things. Instead, you give all that up and you understand you want nothing. Because being yourself in the moment makes you completely happy. When you've accepted nothingness, there's no more chasing through spiritual activities, meditations, exercises. There's no longer anything to be obtained. Except the peace of nothingness. And that's the opposite of attaining. It's disattaining, letting go. And you'll be shocked at how happy it makes you feel to do nothing. Does anyone have a question or an observation? When I was first practicing spirituality, I fell under the influence of Philip Kapleau, who read some books that were starting me on the spiritual journey. But once you go on it, the spiritual journey, you encounter all kinds of teachers. And the greatest teacher is always your own self. And the greatest of all meditations is when you can sit by yourself doing nothing. And feel what that state feels like. How you grow more and more comfortable in that. And how you want to spend more and more time doing nothing. These are not the kind of teachings that you should give to a 16-year-old or a 20-year-old. When your whole life is about seeking and understanding. These are the kind of teachings for retired people, for those nearing retirement. Where you just experience yourself. And this is your realization. You watch the comings and goings of different experiences in your life, like sleep and meditation. You become aware of what they're like on a microscopic level, so to speak, where you're totally there and experiencing them, but in silence. When you go to any spiritual group or practice, you'll find all different kinds of people. But there are quiet ones in all groups of spiritual people. Who do nothing. And they go deeper and deeper into nothingness. Nothingness is the opposite of what you've been doing your entire life. And it introduces you to a new world, a world of silence and peace. You're not striving to become peaceful. That would be counterproductive. Instead, you just surrender yourself to silence. You let your growing peace guide you as to what comes next. But the less reading you do, the better. It just fills your head with new words to learn about different states. You want to let that desire go. I call that lowest state the zero state, because nothing is happening there. But you'll gradually begin to realize that the zero state can have any amount of depth that you want to give it. And you begin to experience different kinds of zero states. Till after a while, one or two of them becomes predominant, and you no longer have to make decisions about which one you're aiming for, because it doesn't matter. One is as good as another. The important thing is to let go of activity and let go of thinking. One of the benefits is after a while, you're living a very simplified form of existence that makes little demands on you for your time or attention. Also, for some people, it leads to many kinds of altered states, which you can indulge in for a while. But after that, they go away. because you no longer think. You know, thinking is to charge your reality with knowing. And you get back to your old way of life, which is to try to know as much as possible about yourself and the world. To drop all that and meet life as it's offered to you, not as some ideal you think it should be. And with each of these smaller realizations, you build a backlog of peace and quiet. And you notice how different you are from the way you were 5 years ago or 6 years ago. Does anyone have any questions?
Hi, Edgy. Not a question, but a statement. It seems to me that one stumbling block that may go unnoticed, and you've alluded it to several times in your talk here and many other times, is the sense of being the one who's doing the practicing. So one could know that one could believe that one is not a separate self, et cetera, et cetera. But there can be all kinds of structures in place internally through the body sense, through thought, through past conditioning that points to a separate self doing the practice. And it could be very subtle too. It does get very, it often does get very subtle as one goes along. But from my vantage point, the way I experience it, it's like I enjoy the nothingness so much that over time, I look at anything that interrupts or drags me out of it as something to be relaxed. And because that is the barrier from going deeper are the hooks that this conditioning drags you out of it. So to make it simple, my love of the state of beingness or the zero state or nothingness is far more deeper and real and has won me over the past conditioning, which has dissolved largely has dissolved away because it's realized that it's not good, and realize it's impeding one's deepening. So
Precisely.
Yeah.
Well put.
Edgy, I feel like this is an open book test, and I still keep feeling as though I have to accomplish something. And I feel also that it seems like whether there's an imperative that we all have to come this way. I don't know that I want to reincarnate if that's available. I think what you said, I would have traded any day today during the 51 years that I was at work and television and smoke and mirrors. Just even if it were at my age, just for the satisfaction, the exquisite grace and bliss of just being able to be in nothingness, to simply use that exquisite state that is so suffused with everything. The perfection of it allows me, as I've said before, just to be in the mundane world and to make every moment as a meditation. And again, your words are so perfect and your love is so exquisite, and you just overwhelm me and you take my breath away. But as I said, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And I don't know how many laps, whatever, but I'm in it for the long haul. One thing you said about Nisargadatta and Robert Adams was how they held consciousness. And I think Nisargadatta looked at it as you had to have a body to be aware of consciousness, and consciousness was temporary. And Robert Adams seemed to say that consciousness was all. And on some level, it seemed that Nisargadatta, possibly, if this could be construed as such, was slightly more evolved in that he was always living in the witness, because he was always outside of consciousness, which is partly where I believe you are, in a sense. I think that I carry this baggage around, and I don't spend a lot of time with whatever the machinations were between Robert Adams and Nisargadatta, but I think to go back to simply the joy and the grace and simply in abiding in nothingness, I'd rather just end my consternation and my question and my satisfaction and bliss in what you did, and just to be aware of that. And as you've always said to me, just put it down, let it go, stop asking questions, stop looking for answers. So that's what I do. And part of that is my same coming back to the every satsang with you is a Shaktipat sadhana, and your darshan just explodes me, and I love you so much. Thank you, Edgy.
Thank you, Jay. You can become an example for many people here of those who seek whatever, and how there seems to be a tension between those who seek and those who don't. But in the ending of seeking, there's happiness. So actually, the way we seek as devotees, as spiritual people, is to be aware of ourselves in the present moment. And not to do a lot of reading about who and what we are, instead of being who we are. Through use of the mind, by becoming mindless. Stop thinking. But as long as you're practicing spirituality, you're seeking. You're seeking the non-seeking state. Because besides allowing you to become happy, when you stop really seeking and make the transition to being, everything in your life will change for the better. And that's why it's good as a group that we get together twice a week. And many of you get together more often than not and practice meditation or whatever you want to practice, doing that as a group. Whatever you can do to encourage letting go of who you were helps to become aware of who you are now. I'm going to leave now. I think it would be helpful for those who stay to stay in silence as long as you can. Get used to it. Mark, can you take over?
Yes, I will. Thank you. Sure.
Thank you. Bye-bye.